All right, everybody, welcome to a scripting crash course for creatives. My name's Kevin, and today, and over the course of the next however many classes it takes, we are going to teach you to be hackers. The goal here is, as I said, to teach you to be a hacker so that you can learn to write scripts to increase your productivity, so that we can leverage little scripts, snippets of code, basically, that will help remove some of the tedious parts of your workflow so you can focus more on the creative. Now, who is this for? This is literally level 0. Welcome to level 0. This is for people who've never written code in their life, for people who have maybe struggled with writing code and just couldn't get through certain barriers because we all learn different ways. Maybe my way of teaching will be the thing that helps it sink in for you. And if you happen to be a guru, also we welcome feedback. So I'm happy to hear about any suggestions you might have for better ways to approach things, etc. This is generally taught live. I have been teaching some form of this course over the last 20-25 years to creatives in all kinds of, character animators, modelers, all kinds of different creatives. And generally speaking, like I said, it's live, so there's a little bit of more of an interaction to it. And I'm going to try to make the video like that as well. Usually it takes about 7 to 10 classes. And after about 7 or 10 classes, you should hopefully have the foundation that you can use to kind of launch into your own exploration in how to increase your productivity and script your workflows. And then a lot of times you will move on to be doing even more complicated stuff on your own. Now, we're going to be learning in context. In general, you will learn more in context. I am expecting that as we work through this, you should also be working through this. So if I type something, you want to be typing things. The reason for that is you will learn, yes, by listening, but you learn even more by doing and the repetition of repeating it. Also, it's important for you to make mistakes. We have to make mistakes because the more times you make the mistakes, the more you will learn how to fix those mistakes. And that's a huge part of what scripting is. Making a mistake, it doesn't do quite what you want, you have to go back and fix it. Or you get an error, where do you look to, how do you fix it? So this is going to be an iterative process. We're going to slowly, over time, in context, as we build out a tool, and I'm going to give you some tool recommendations that you could possibly write. And what's going to happen is, all of a sudden one day, you're going to wake up in the middle of this course and think, I know Kung Fu. So that's kind of the goal. That's who we're talking. That's who this course is for. Now, this one's going to be a little bit different because, like I said, normally this class is live. So I'm going to probably be doing a lot of rhetorical questions, trying to pretend some of the common questions we get from students, or I've gotten from students over time. So that's one thing that's going to be different. So it may go faster, it may go slower, we'll see. The other thing that's going to be different is we're going to be working primarily with Python, which is a scripting language that allows you to do all kinds of cool stuff. Because Python is integrated, it's a scripting language that's available in a lot of different DCC packages. By DCC, that's digital content creation, if you're super new to this. So for example, Maya, Unreal, Nuke, Blender, all kinds of Houdini, all kinds of programs have access to Python scripting. So if you learn how to write scripts in Python, you will be able to use that in a lot, in so much of your creative workflow. Also, if we learn Python, most of what we learn about control flow and logic and just how to approach things, how to debug, all that's going to be applicable in any language that you decide to learn, which is great. So we'll be able to leverage that as well. The other thing that's going to be different about this is this first class, I'm going to be teaching in Maya. And there's a really good reason for that. Maya has a really cool thing about the way that it's written that gives you a cheat sheet for kind of wrecking the learning curve into, just understanding how scripting might work. And I'm going to show that to you. It will become clear in a second. But I don't want to, exclude a couple of the other tools as well. So for example, in particular, Unreal is a focus lately. What I'm going to do is I'm going to do the class in Maya, and then afterwards, if there is something that is specifically applicable to Unreal, I will record an Unreal addendum where I go back and I cover those same specific points, but in Unreal. We'll see how that goes. We'll see what you all think as we go forward. So that's kind of what you've gotten yourself into with this. Let's talk a little bit about what a script even is. And I don't want to get too far into it. Like I said, I'm not teaching you to be a software engineer here. This is all about teaching you to be a hacker. If we light the spark and you just get really excited about it and you want to go on to be a software engineer, I'm probably not qualified to teach you full-on software engineering. Even though technically I'm a computer, electrical, and software engineer. Anyways, but let's talk a little bit about some of how scripting works, okay? Generally speaking, there's an application out there like Maya, Unreal, Houdini, etc. And the developers who created that application thought it would be cool for other people to be able to extend it, to be able to do and build other tools on top of what they created by default. So what they do is they create an API, it's called, but basically it's a window that allows creatives like us to write little snippets of code that their program will understand. And that is usually called an interpreter. So for example, in actual like programming speak, Houdini, Unreal, Maya, they all have a Python interpreter in it. So when we write a code snippet, those programs know how to do what they're supposed to do with it, and we can automate our workflows. Now, speaking of automating workflows, it's all about tools. It's all about fixing repetitive tasks, but it's also about the creative process. I have so many examples in my career of times where I used scripting in order to make my animation even possible. So for example, there were shots on Cloudy with a Chance Meatballs with 85 ratbirds in it. Trying to wrangle 85 ratbirds by hand is a lot of fun, But this is a shot I'm talking about. You can check it out. That's just an example. So multiple chickens. When I first started on very early in my career, I did a bunch of stuff for web slinging systems for the original Spider-Man. Wrote a bunch of stuff for Doc Ock Tentacles in the second Spider-Man. Just even everyday stuff, selecting keys in Maya, all of it. I've written scripts to speed up my workflows, and that's what we're going for. And that's all been done because these tools have a scripting language like Python that is available to us. Now, so we have this interpreter that allows us to write, and that was a little bit of a digression, I apologize, but we have this little interpreter that allows us to write code, but where does it actually happen? How does it work? So let's hop into Maya and take a look at a few areas where we are able to write scripts. So we need to know, basically today we're talking about a quick little intro. We also have where we're going to write scripts. We're going to be talking about our first few simple scripts. We're even going to write our first few simple scripts. We're going to talk about resources for how you understand what you're looking at, and then I'm going to give you all a bunch of homework. Yes, there's homework. So let's take a look at Maya. And in Maya, one of the things that is important to understand about Maya is there are actually two scripting languages for Maya. One is Python, the other one is Mel. Now, originally, Maya was written in, Maya only had Mel as its scripting language, and so it is very integrated and tied in. So we're not going to teach you Mel, but we are going to teach you how to use Mel for us to learn Python a lot faster, and I'll get to that in a second. So let's start with where we enter scripts and code in Maya. So we have Maya. In the bottom left, the first spot is the command line. You'll see here there's this empty square down here with the word mel written next to it. What that tells you is this is a place where you could type in a mel command and Maya would do that. All right, if we click this mel button, it will change to Python. So this button changes the scripting language that this box is utilizing. So that's for just a quick one-liner if you wanted to use it. The second place that we can enter scripts is in the script editor. At the far right of the command line is a box. If you're using the default UI, there's a box that you can click, and when you click on it, it brings up the script editor. Now, let's talk a little bit about some of the parts of the script editor. The top half is the history. It's what's been happening in our scene, and this is a huge reason why we're teaching this course in Maya, because this history will allow us to see what's happening and learn from it. The bottom half, this is the input section. Something that's important to note: when you first start, you may only have two tabs, one that says mel and one that says Python. But what's important to note is you have to make sure that if you're writing Python scripts, you enter them in a Python tab, and mel scripts go into a mel tab. Now, so we have our history and our input. What the heck does that even mean? Let me show you what that means. In Maya, let's actually, before I show you what that means, I'm going to show you one quick button. There's this clear history button up here where when I click that, it clears the history. That's one of my two favorite buttons in this shelf. Probably the only two I use for the most part is this clear history. The bottom one is clear the input, which is semi-dangerous in my opinion. And then the third one is clear both. So clearing history. Now, let me show you what I'm talking about as far as the Maya cheat sheet goes. In this case, in Maya, hopefully you're familiar with it. If not, if we go to create, we can choose a sphere. Now, what happens is when it creates a sphere, you'll notice in the history section what it did. It did update, render, override. It prints out polysphere with a whole bunch of gobbledygook after it. -R, -SX, -SY, da. Okay, that's fine. And then it prints result. But you'll notice I created a sphere. Okay, so let's do that again, except this time instead of sphere, let's create a locator. Create a locator. If we look, I forgot to clear my history. I'm going to clear my history and do that again. So if we create a locator now, you'll notice, wow, I keep forgetting to do this. Okay, so create locator. All right, you'll notice that it prints space locator -P000. Now, if you were a guessing person and I told you that space locator was a command, hopefully you would guess that it's a command that creates a space locator. And the P, this -P afterwards, this is what's called a flag. We're not going to worry about this quite yet. We're going to talk about all the parts in a second. But the overall point here is Maya prints out everything you're doing as you do it. So you can use that to learn how to do different things. So in Maya, if we change to move, and I move this locator to the left, you'll notice that it prints move -R some number 000. Well, hopefully you can see where I'm going with this. By running space locator and then move, we basically created a space locator and moved it. If I click off, you'll notice that it's select -CL. So very quickly, this is create a space locator, move it, and then clear the selection. The -CL is called a flag. This particular flag means clear. This is why we're using Maya. Now, what's important to understand is all of the history that you see printed here, this is mel. This is not Python, but we can still use it to learn what we want to do in Python. So where does this become powerful? I am going to copy all of this and we are going to run our first script. All right, I'm going to delete our locator. I'm going to clear my history, and then in a mel window, this is important, in a mel window, I'm going to paste the exact same thing that Maya just printed. When I do that, I'm not going to do anything else but run the code. I have not shown you the button to run the code yet, so let me show you that. There's two ways. One, you can press this play button up here. When I press this, what's going to happen is this code is going to hop from here up to here, and then it's going to do stuff. So let's press play. All right, now it's hard to see because the locator is dark green, but I can pick it over here. You'll notice I now have a locator that's over here off to the side, and it's even been moved. So we just ran our first little script. So if we wanted to, let's make this a better example. I'm going to clear my history again because it's my cheat sheet. I'm going to create that polygon sphere. I'm going to move it off to the side. Then I'm going to create a polygon cube, for example. It doesn't matter what you do. I'm going to move it off to the side. I'm going to take all of the code that just printed as Mel, and I'm going to paste that in the Mel window. All right, now I'm going to clear my history, and I'm going to do the same thing again. I have a brand new Maya scene. Imagine that I needed to create this sphere and this cube for 100 different scenes. Or imagine this cube and sphere is a camera setup for every single scene. Rather than having to do it every time, if I could just write a script that would do this exact same thing, I wouldn't have to do it anymore. Well, that's what we're going to do. So now we've pasted this in our Mel window. When I press play, it's going to create the sphere, move it, create the cube, move it. This is it. This is our first script. Okay, now I'm going to delete these and I'm going to clear my history again because there's a different way to enter these commands that I want to show you. So right now we've just been pasting it and we've been pressing play. One of the things that we can do as our method of input is I can highlight this. If I highlight this before I press play, I want you to notice the difference. When I press play, you'll notice we get our sphere, it's moved, our cube, it's moved, and it prints what it ran, but it also leaves my code in the script editor. That's great because now I can do something else afterwards. Okay, so we've just executed our first script. We are on our second way of inputting and running scripts in Maya. Okay, so we have the command line and we have the script editor. Mostly we're going to work with the script editor, but I want to show you a third way because there's two reasons why. All right, the third way is basically you can read directly from a script file. And a script file in this case, they're called Python files, and they are named .py for the extension. So what you can do is you can write a file called myscript.py, for example, and you can save your script into it, and then you can open and execute that. So to do that, you can just do file open script, and then you would just explore to your script. So in this case, I believe I have one on my desktop. If we look at our names, this should be scripting crash course. I have a myscript.py. All right, if I open that, you'll notice that it creates a tab, in this case for myscript.py. Now I could have run it too. I believe there's a source, it's called sourcing the script. That would actually run and source the script at the same time. The reason I'm showing you that is because Maya has a script editor. Other tools like Houdini, Unreal Engine, they may or may not have script editors, so you may be writing your code in a Python file that you created, a script file that you create. There's another reason why. Even though we're going to be using the script editor, I generally work in a separate file anyways. Here's why. I never know when the program that I'm working in, Maya, Unreal, Houdini, whatever it is going to crash. Imagine I spent all this time creating this cool script that will save me a ton of time, and then the tool crashes and I lose all my work. So generally speaking, as a best practice, I will write my code in a separate program, Notepad++, a special Python editor like PyCharm or Wing, and then I will just copy paste it into Maya, or I will open the script in Maya and run it directly from disk. So 3 ways to run a script in Maya: the command line, the script editor, and basically your own script file that you've saved on disk somewhere. Now, let's get back to kind of our first script and what we're doing. So we have this script that we've been running, but remember, it's been Mel. We haven't actually run a Python script yet. So let's run what is the very typical, we kind of skipped ahead. Our first script, man, we created spheres and cubes and we moved them. But let's run what the typical first script for everybody is in almost every programming language you've ever learned, and it's called Hello World. And to do that, we need to understand what a command is. Now, when you have a scripting language like Python or any other scripting language, there are commands that you can run to tell it what to do. Now, the libraries of commands are vast and there's a lot of them. And you're not going to know all of them, especially when you first start. But as you get familiar, you won't have to look up quite as many. And what is going to happen is over time, you'll find the ones that are most useful to you. But one of the simplest commands that is available to us is print. So right with me here, in a Python tab in the script editor, just type the word print. When you do that, you'll notice that it highlights green. This is telling you that it is a command. It is a special word that the interpreter, the Python scripting language, understands to do something with. Now, print, as you could probably guess, is expecting to print something. So how do we tell it what to print? We're going to put some parentheses, and in the parentheses, we're going to type hello world. Now you'll notice I put quotes around it as well. Python will allow you to use double quotes or single quotes, it doesn't matter as long as they match. So this is our first command. It is made of two parts, the command word, in this case print, and the string hello world. Now the string, it's technically called a flag or an argument. We're not going to worry too much about it. Just understand that in order to print something, you have to tell it what to print. And in this case, we're telling it to print hello world. So if we clear our history and we run this, I'm going to highlight the whole thing and press play. Two things happen. First, it prints the script that we told it that we wanted to run. Then it prints the results. So you'll see here 2 lines print in our script editor. Print hello world, that's just what we entered. It's not actually doing anything yet. And then it prints hello world. This is awesome. This actually, you've now run your first Python script. All right, we're starting to level up from our level 0. Now I'm going to do another thing in here just for clarity, okay? In addition to commands, and we're about to get into this a little bit, we're identifying different parts of a script so you can learn to read, so you can learn from them. You can do and create comments, okay? And a comment in Python is denoted by a # or a hashtag, whatever you want to call it, and you can put your comment in there. And I'm just going to put a comment, which is just a big long red line. The reason I'm going to do this is I want it clear for you all the difference between the input and the result. So watch what happens when we run this now. I'm going to clear my history and we're going to run hello world. So it prints hello world, and then there's just the 2 comments, which is just the dashed lines. They don't actually do anything. And then it's just hello world. Now, the reason I did this is, again, just for visual clarity in what we're doing. If we wanted to, I could, most of the time, we want our comments to be useful. So if I wanted to comment my script, I could say my first script. Now you'll notice that, again, it's really nice that Maya color codes different parts of a script for us. In this case, comments are red. Commands are green. And then things in quotes are highlighted yellow. And there's a bunch of different coloring that helps us know, where the commands are, where everything is. And different scripting UIs handle this differently. What I mean by that is, if you were to look at this in PyCharm, the highlighting might be different. Emacs, Wing, all of them use different highlighting. There will not be any highlighting if you're using Notepad++, for example, though. Unless, well, they may have changed. They may have an add-on that lets you do highlighting. Anyways, point is, we now have a comment, a command, and some more comments. And if I run this, this is going to do the exact same thing. It is going to print out my script, and then it's going to print out the result. In this case, we're printing hello world. Moving right along. Okay, so at this point, there's something else that is very important and worth knowing. I am going to intentionally make a couple of changes here. Okay, and I'm going to intentionally create an error because I want to show you we need to turn something on. Now this error is going to be pretty obvious. I deleted one quote. The reason I did that is because twofold. One, you'll notice that hello world is no longer highlighted yellow. That's my first visual indicator that something's wrong. The other thing that's going to happen is when I run this, you'll notice that it just says error, syntax error, EOL, which stands for end of line while scanning string literal. That's not super helpful, and it would be great to know where that is. So there is a feature, something that you need to turn on in your script editor under history. You want to make sure that line numbers in errors is turned on, and you also want to turn on show stack trace. Now, take note of what this looks like right now. I'm going to clear the history and I'm going to rerun this again. When I do this, you'll notice that it prints the error, but this time it says line 3. So I know where to look for the problem. So then I can go back to my code and I can look in. Sometimes, you know, it gives a plus or minus 1, but I can see, okay, I need a quote in here. Got it. All right, I'll clear my history, and that will help me find where the problem is. Okay, so we've run our first script, but let's start adding to it a little bit. Let's take a look at some resources that will help us understand a bunch of those things that we saw when we were working with the spheres and cubes earlier. So to do that, let's go to our favorite place, the internet. And what I want you to do is I want you to type in search Maya 2022 Python move command. What this is going to do, generally speaking, the first thing that comes up if you type Maya, a version number, Python, something command, there's going to be an Autodesk site that pops up. And in this case, if you look at the, that wasn't the one I was looking for. The one I'm looking for, here, let's not do 2022. Let's just do Maya Python move command. Here we go. It's the download one here. If I click on this download one, this is going to take me to the move commands. Now, this is an older version of Maya. It would be great if we could get a newer version. So let's just do Maya 2020. Let's do Maya Python 2022 reference, command reference. Here we go. Maya Python command reference 2022. Did they change the formatting of this? Oh my goodness, they did. All right, let's go back because this is not what I'm looking for. Let's see, actually maybe it is. I've never even looked at this doc, so let's see. Nope, this is not the one that I want. Maya developer help. Python API reference, Maya, etc. No, this isn't what I want either. Wow, okay, let's not use 2022. Let's use, Maya Python move 2021. They changed their docs, it looks like. Let's not use the version. Maya Python move, downloads.autodesk. This is the one I want. All right, if we show frames, hold on, let me find out the right place to do this. Because I don't want you all on a wild goose chase. Command reference. I want to know what we're supposed to be searching for. Maya Python command reference. That's the 2010 version of it. Okay, well, I guess it doesn't matter. So generally speaking, what I do is I just type Maya move command, and the first thing that comes up is the one that says downloads Autodesk. Now this is an older version of it in the sense that it's Maya 2010, but it's still the same. So it's still going to work for us. Now, when you look at this, the whole point here is using this as a guide. Now, there's a lot here. There's mostly, I don't read any of this, okay? Largely because I know specifically what I'm looking for, but also because there's only so much space in my brain. I don't want to read everything. I just need to know how it works. So this entire first section, maybe I don't even read it. What's important to understand though is if we click on show frames up here, this is all the commands that are available in Python. There's tons of them, okay? If we type in move, it will filter it for us, and I can choose just the move one, and we can go into it now that it's in the frames mode, and I can see all the stuff. Now, so this is a description of what it does. It says the move command, the move command is used to change positions of geometric objects. That's great, that's what we want. The second section is the flag section, and this is where the juice is. So all of those things, when we ran the move command, the -R, the -P, this is where we go to find out what it means. So for example, if you recall in Maya, when I created the sphere and I moved it, you can see that move -R that shows up in the history. All right, if I come in, I'm like, what is that -R? I come into the command reference and I look for the flags, and there's one that says R in it, relative. It performs the operation relative to the object's current position. Great. So now I know what R is. This set of documents generally exists for every, or should hopefully exist, for any content creation app that you're using, Python, Houdini, Unreal, Maya, so that you know what the commands do that are available to you. Now, it's worth talking about very quickly the difference between Python commands and the libraries that are created by the app. So there are things in Python like print that is just, it's available in all Python. It's just part of default Python. And then there are commands that are written specific for the application you're using, in this case, Maya. So the Maya has a library of Python commands available to you. And that's going to be important when we get into identifying the parts of a script. So anyways, this is our command reference. We can look at it. I can look at this and figure out what the flags are. Now, the coolest thing about Maya's command references is at the bottom, they give us examples. So you can see here, these Python examples. If I just copy these, okay, and I bring these back into Maya, I clear my history, and I just run these commands. Let's delete this sphere that's here. Let's just pick, I'm not even gonna look at it, I'm just gonna pick them and run it and see what happens. Oh, it created a sphere, and it didn't seem to do anything. All right, well, let's talk about what's happening here. We've talked about commands before. Now we're talking about specifically commands that are created as a library that you can use. So remember how I said there is a library of commands that are available for you for Maya that are specific? How do we get access to those? That's what this first line does. This import statement, the way to think about this is importing the Maya commands into basically an object called commands so that I can access them, I can use them. So if somebody built a library of Maya commands and I don't want to rewrite them all, I'm just going to use those. This is a way for me to import that library for use. It's that's just the way it works. Now, the commands specifically as commands, you'll notice that every command down here in blue is basically, these are the commands and it's preceded by this commands. So commands.polysphere is running the polysphere command that is part of the Maya commands library. Commands.move is running the move command that is part of the Maya commands library. So this import Maya commands as command, the CMDS is just giving me access to all of the Maya commands. And when we highlight this and run it, all it did was create a sphere. That's what it looks like it did. Let's break this down a little bit. There's something else that's important about, or potentially useful in your learning about how to use the script editor. If we highlight each line, one line at a time, most of the time we can run one line at a time. So let's do that. The first line I'm gonna run is the import commands. You'll notice that it didn't do anything, because all it's doing is it's saying, make the library available to us. Then the very first command we're gonna run in the commands library is polysphere. So I'm gonna highlight that line and I'm gonna run just that line. That created a sphere. Let's go to the next line. Commands move. Now, before we click this, I'm hoping you can look at this and take a guess at what it's going to do. Commands move 1, 1, 1. All right, I'm guessing that's going to move the object to the point 1, 1, 1. Or maybe because we already looked up, there is a relative option. Maybe it moves it relative 1, 1, 1. Either way, let's run this command. And you saw the sphere move a tiny little bit. All right. So now there's another command move that has two, I guess, flags or arguments. One is the number 5, so I'm gonna guess that's a distance. And the other one is y equals true. Let's go back to our command reference and see what y does. Okay, move y. This y is short for move y, and it moves it in the y direction. So my guess when I read this is commands move 5 y equals true means move it 5 units in y. This is the cool thing about scripting, especially when it's written in a standard way is probably the easiest way to say that. Generally speaking, things are named after and for what they do. So you'll be able to read the script, and if you just say it out loud, kind of understand what it's doing. So let's just do this. We'll run this command now. Popped up 5 units in y. This is great. Now this one, if we take a look at it, this is another move command. It moves it 1 inch, 1 inch, 1 inch. Relative is true. Now this is interesting. This is relative equals true. I want you to notice the difference. Relative true versus R. Remember it was R before. What this is telling you in this command reference is you can either write out the whole thing relative or you can just use R. Either one. So the first bit of information here is the full name, which you can write out. The second bit is the shortened name if you don't want to write it out every time. All right. So this is relative object space as opposed to world space and a world space distance. If I run this command, it's going to move it 1 inch, 1 inch, 1 inch, etc. And then finally, the last line is move 0, 0, 0, the sphere, and then absolute true. So this basically moves it back to the origin. So we've gone through this script line by line now, and now we understand why the script appeared useless, because the last line of it moved the sphere back to the origin where it started. Well, that's not super useful, so let's just delete that last line. Let's delete our sphere, let's clear our history, and let's just rerun our new script without the last line again, and you'll notice that our sphere ends up maybe where we wanted it to be. This is really cool. Now, there is a massive amount of commands that are available here, and so you can go through here and you can just pick any of them, and usually they will have an example that you can use for it. So let's take, for example, let's see what they do with their let's look at the sections up here, something that's interesting. Let's do a control from the windows, and for fun, let's just take a look at a text field. Now this is completely, we're not going to get it. We are going to talk about UIs later, user interfaces, where you can build your own windows that you will be able to have buttons and everything to run your tools. But I'm skipping way ahead here because we don't need to understand it all. I clicked on text field. This is a reference for it. I can figure out what all this stuff does, but I'm going to skip all that. And I am going to grab all of this stuff all of this code from the Python examples. I'm going to come back to Maya and I'm going to paste it in here. And then I'm going to clear my history, delete our sphere, and let's just see if this runs. It does. Now, when it ran, it popped up a window. I maybe even wasn't expecting that. And you can see in the window, there's name, address, phone number, and email. Whoa, okay, so this script is all about creating a user interface, a window. And we can actually step through it and look at what it does. So now we're moving into parts of code or parts of a script. Okay, now the first part we already talked about. This is the importation of libraries that we can use that contain commands. There's a lot of Python speak around these. These are called modules, and there's a whole lot involved with them. But for now, let's just think of them as an ability for us to get access to, you know, a library of scripts that maybe we've already written or somebody else has. We have commands like this, commands for window. Now this is new. We have window is equal to commands. This is a variable. All right, we're not going to completely explain variables right now, but the thing to know is we use variables to store values for later use. We'll go into a full explanation of all kinds of different variables later. But what this is doing is this command is creating a window and it's storing it in a variable called window to be used later. Then we have more commands, then we have another variable, we have some comments here, we have some strings, you can see them, they're highlighted in yellow. This is all of it. Now, I have another script example I'm going to show you that we're going to walk through a few more parts so you can learn to identify the parts. But specifically here, let's just walk through what this is. We have our import, we have a comment, window, that's pretty obviously, it creates a window, a row column layout, number of columns 2, with some attachments and some widths. So if I just read that out loud and I say it, a row column layout with 2 columns. So it's creating something with 2 columns. Then it's creating a text for the name, and it's creating a text field, right? So here's text for name and then text field. Then text for the address and text field, text for the phone number and text field. So you get it. We have 2 columns, text, text field, text, text field. A text is just what it is. It's just a string that explains what it is, name, address, email. A text field is generally, in most languages I worked with, that's like an input box. So the text name is the label or label, and the text field would be the input portion of it. All right, so we're just doing text, text field, text, text field. That's great. Then we have another comment, and then let's see here. This is, I can read this. So commands text field, the name of, it's the name field, edit, we're gonna edit it. And when we enter, we're gonna enter a command where it sets the focus. So this looks like it's just changing the focus every time we press the enter button. So it'll skip to the next one. All right, and then finally, we're going to show the window. So if we reopen the window and we have the window open as we walk through it, you can see we have name text field, address text field, phone number text field, email text field. If I type in my name, Kevin, and I press enter, you see that it pops right down to the next input. That's what this second section did. All right, cool. So we are working on identifying all of the parts of a script. That was just one that we copied from the Maya setup. If we come back here and we take a look at the cube, for example. Here's a polycube. If we click on that, we can once again skip all this, go to the bottom. We can grab this whole thing, take it back to Maya, paste it in here, and use this to see what this does. This created 2 cubes. If I blow away my history and I look at this quickly, it created 1 cube that was 10 units in X, 15 in Y. This is, and then a height of 20. Then it created another cube that was 5 by 5 by 5. And then it created another cube that's just sitting at the order, interesting. So let's see here. We have that cube, we have this cube. It looks like there's supposed to be 3 cubes here. So let's just do this again and see. So line by line. All right, that's our first cube. I'm gonna move it out of the way. This is our second cube. I'm gonna move it out of the way. Ah, okay. Why didn't this one create a cube? Well, it's because this command is in query mode. Now, it's a little bit jumping ahead, but let's take a look at this. Basically what it's doing is it is querying the width, I believe, of the first polycube and storing it in a variable called w. How do you know what you can query, etc.? Well, when you look at this command reference in Maya, or in the docs for Maya, you'll notice off to the right, there's all these properties. One says C, Q, and E. So C is for create. That's something that you can call when you create it, when you first do it. Q is something that is queryable. So like your width, your height. I want to know, I created a cube, now how tall is it? That would be something that I query. And editable, the E, means something that you can edit after the fact. So I created a cube, now I want to edit, make it shorter, fatter, whatever. That's what all this C, Q, E stuff means over on the right. Okay, so Maya cheat sheets are awesome. We're going to be able to use this to help us learn a whole lot faster. Let's talk about a couple other scripts, parts that we can identify in scripts. This is actually, this one is called Wing. I use PyCharm, Wing, Emacs. I've used all kinds of different editing, but let's take and look at a very, very simple script. I'm actually going to paste this back in Maya just because this is what we're used to looking at. There are a couple parts to identify here very quickly. We have our import statement. This one imports something called math. Now, if you were a guessing person, I would hope that when you saw importing math, based on what we've talked about so far, you would think, oh, that is going to import a library of math tools or commands that we can use. And you would be right. Then, this is new. This def area R thing, okay? What this is this is the first time you've seen it. This is defining, def is short for define, a function or a procedure called area that takes a value, all right? And then everything that happens inside that function is indented. So this area and return are all part of the area function. Excuse me. And then finally afterwards, we have area 4. Now, again, this is not about understanding everything that happens here. This is about identifying the parts. So the parts to this, we have the import. This is our libraries, the things we can use. We have our define, which defines a function. All of this is the function. If that's all you understand about it, that's great. Then usually in most scripts, after you import your libraries, you define everything, then you want to run it. It's called the main portion or the execute portion. All this does is calls the function area. If I run this entire thing, let's clear our history, without even fully understanding what it is, let's just see what it does. Invalid syntax. It does not like this print. Why doesn't it like that? Is it the print or the return? Let's see. Oh, well, that's awesome. I'm just gonna make this work. There we go. Cool. So I'm not sure why it didn't like the return. I think probably because you need to specify it. I don't want to get into that. I don't want to get lost. The point is, this theoretically, when you run it, it will do a thing. The identification is the important part here. We have the import, we have the definition of the function, we have our main portion, which then basically executes, starts the script. What happens is, the other things to note in here are a variable. We know it's a variable because generally speaking, variables are to the left side of an equal sign. So what this is saying is the area is equal to math.py pi, so that's just pi, what you learned when you were taking geometry, times a power of the radius squared, right? That's just the formula for the radius of a circle, or the area, I'm sorry, the area of a circle based on the radius. And then it runs a command called print, area of a circle is area. So great, we've identified all the parts. Let's do the same thing a couple more times, and then we will wrap up class for today. So this is a new one. We'll clear our history. Hopefully this one runs a little bit better first out of the gate. Never trust the internet. This time we're just gonna run it. This is counting down. Look at that, 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2. Okay, cool. So now let's take a look. Now that it's done, let's take a look at what this does. We have our import. It's gonna import a library, basically a module that has time stuff in it. That's cool. It's going to define a function called countdown, and then it's going to start the whole script by calling countdown starting at 10. So the time in seconds is the first thing. Again, we can read this. Countdown takes a time in seconds. Now, while our time in seconds is, I'm not totally sure what that means, but while time in seconds is there, we have minutes and seconds. There's some math that happens. We set our time format to be, I don't really understand what this means, O2D format minutes and seconds, but I can look at it and say format minutes and seconds. It probably means that it's a formatting thing. Okay, I'll learn to understand that later. This is me just walking through as a first-time student, hopefully. Then I'm going to print the time format. Then I'm going to run this command from the time library called sleep. And I'm going to sleep for 1. Then I'm going to do this time in seconds minus equal 1. This is a little bit weird, but I'm going to tell you what this is. This is basically reducing our time by 1, so that each time we go through this, it's counting down by 1 second. Now, when I ran this, you'll notice that Maya froze for 10 seconds. Okay, so let's run this again. When I run it, I can't move this window, even though I'm trying to. While this is counting down and running, I cannot use Maya. So you could see that if I accidentally type the wrong thing, I could potentially freeze Maya. This is why, oftentimes, I will write my scripts in Notepad. I will do exactly what I just did here, copy it, and I will paste it into Maya. Now, I'm not going to belabor identifying parts of scripts. This is part of your homework. Hopefully, the general idea at this point is clear. So, with that, we covered what we're doing here, how to write scripts, how to enter them, the Maya cheat sheet, and things like that. We ran our first scripts, we wrote our first Python commands, and now it's time to do some homework. So what do we want you to do for homework after your first class? First things first, I want you to go out, I want you to go to your favorite free tools sites and find a couple scripts. And I want you to make sure they're Python scripts, and I want you to take a look at them and try to identify the parts. All right, look for, can you find functions? Can you find variables and what libraries are being imported? Can you find where it starts? Just read through it. If it's written well, you will generally be able to read through it and understand kind of the general gist of what is happening. Anything you see that looks weird that you don't understand, write those down and bring those to class to ask about, and we can talk about what those are. Also, don't get lost in trying to identify every single thing. Just make sure it's kind of clicking. Then, so that's one part of your homework. Your second part of your homework is, I want you to use Maya to build a house with code. Now, there's one piece that you need to understand in order to do this, okay? I'm gonna do it very quickly here for you. We're going to create a polygon, let me clear my history. Okay, we're going to create a polygon primitive of a cube. All right, I am going to scale it down and out, and I'm going to make this my foundation. Okay, then I'm going to create a polygon primitive, another cube, and I'm going to move it over, and I'm going to make this my wall. Scale it up. That's going to be my first wall. Move it in place. Okay, Now I'm going to take all of this and I'm going to paste this into Mel. But remember, we're not writing Mel, we're writing Python. So I'm going to get rid of the comments. And what you need to do, and this is why we're doing it this way, is you need to figure out how to make all of these with Python. This is the map, this is the cheat sheet. It's telling you exactly what you need to do. I need a Python command for polycube, scale, 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 polycube, move, etc. If I do this, if I just run this in Mel, it creates my house. I know it works. So what I need to do is I need to take all of this and convert it to Python. How do I do that? Okay, so to do this in Python, I'm going to just copy and paste that. And the very first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to import maya.commands as commands. All right, just like we did in our cheat sheet. And if you want, you can even use this as your cheat sheet and you can see what you need to start with. Then you'll notice there's this commands polycube command. I'm going to copy that. And everywhere that I have the word polycube, I'm going to put commands in front of it. Now, the way that Python works is it doesn't use -w. Remember, if you look at this, it uses w equals or sy equals or sz equals. So you're going to have to come back here and convert this to w equals 1, h equals 1, d equals 1, sx equals 1, sy equals 1, sz equals 1. You get the idea here, but we're still going to do it all. Okay, this is our axis. That one's going to kind of confusing for me, so I'm not going to do that one. Equals, and I'm going to ignore this one too. Okay, so what this does is, and then I need commas between all of these. Okay, so now I've basically converted my first command. I've written my first command for the polycube. I should be able to run these first two lines and a cube should show up line by line. Okay, now I need to do the next one. So same thing, commands.scale, and Python takes a parenthesis, r equals 1. Let's take a look at that. So is there a scale? Let's take a look at scale. So we're going to go to our cheat sheet. Let's take a look at how scale works. And if we scroll down, and it looks like 111. Okay, so basically we type in the scale and then we give it the arguments. All right, so in this case, it's a little bit different. So here's our scale. And then the last thing we're going to do is relative equals true. And this is basically doing a relative scale. Okay, that's the first scale. All right, I can do this same thing. However you want to get there is fine. I have 3 scales total. So I'm just going to copy these 3. 8.7, that's fine. I'm just going to do these all as 9. Close enough. The point here is not to get it perfect. The point here is to write this, and then let's see here. So that's going to get rid of that one, and then we did one more scale. But let's just do this one first. Okay, so that makes it bigger. And then we did one more scale again to get it down. And this time we're going to go, how much was that by? 0.08. Go 0.08, for example. Bam, there's our foundation. So what you're doing is you are learning how to write commands to build a house. Then you're going to do the same thing again. I'm going to fast track this because I already know my polycube command's been rewritten. So this is going to create my next cube, okay? And then this is the move command. So this one's a little different. The move command, once again, takes 3 arguments, a position, for example. And then I don't need the semicolons, I do need commas. If I just do this, move, comma, comma, you'll see that the cube moves over. Then we have our scale commands. Now I'm going to just copy these scale commands because it's going to be faster. It looks like I did 3 of them, and most of them were 1, 1, 5, for example, and then we did 1, 1, 1.5, for example, and then 1, 4, 1, 1, 4, 1. So we've recreated our command. So that's the move, then here's our scale. Our wall's starting to come in place, and then we did another move. And our last move, you can see here, I'm not even gonna retype that one because it's just faster for me to copy paste it. This is going to be 0. And let's just say 2 is good enough. And then I'm gonna run that move. Interesting. You know why I did that? Because I forgot the relative flag. These are the mistakes that I want you to make, okay? So in this case, you can see here it has this relative flag, -R. If I look at the move command, this is important. If I look at the move command and I look at R, it's relative, it tells me what it is. It's a Boolean. Boolean is a fancy way of saying true or false. So in this case, the R is going to be true. So we're going to add in here that we want this R to be relative to be true. So that way, when it moves it, it only moves it relative to where it is right now. It shifts it up. There we go. We have our first wall. So when you're done, you should have a house, if we do this, where you have 4 walls and some kind of roof. And if you want, you can, your roof, you could create a pyramid. You just move it up and scale it and rotate it. Okay, so that is what your first assignment is going to be. To create a house by hand in Maya, watch what prints, and then convert that, write that as Python code. And this is going to be you starting to build the foundations of making mistakes, learning how to write the commands, and get it done. Okay, so that wraps up our first class. Now, let's talk about how this is going to work. The other thing, even though this is pre-recorded, help is available twice a week right now, and depending on what year or when you're watching this, this is currently 2023. We have a live stream for game dev and Unreal, and I'm going to open it up for anybody who wants to hop in to ask questions around the scripting crash course, to hop in and ask some questions so we can help you out, much like a classroom would be. So do your homework. If you bump into problems, right now, Wednesday mornings at 8 a.m. and Saturday evenings at 10:15 p.m., you can hop in and ask questions about anything that you're running into problems with. There is no question too small. We are starting from level 0. This is going to take us a little while to get to hero, but we will get there. For our next class, before our next class, or I get the video up, I'm going to actually record a little bit of an Unreal addendum to this. Unreal, I want to be honest here, if you're going to try to do this in Unreal, it's not going to be as easy as Road. And that is because, unlike Maya, Unreal does not print out the Python equivalent of everything you do. And there's a whole lot more hunting that you have to do in order to do it. So you're going to be learning Unreal plus trying to learn to script. That's why working in Maya, even if you download the free version, it will probably be faster for you. But I'll record the Unreal addendum, so at least you understand how to enter Python commands. It'll be very short this time. How to enter Python commands and how to source script files in Unreal as an addendum to this one. So that wraps up our first class for the scripting crash course. In the future, we're going to be getting into variables and functions and all kinds of things on our journey to building out our first useful tool. Now, briefly, before I let you all go, as part of something to look forward to, I recommend that you pick a tool that you've always wanted to write, or something that you think would be useful for your workflow based on your profession. So for example, and if you can't think of some, hit me up. I have some ideas that might help you that are probably good little stepping stones. So for example, if you are a character animator, might I suggest that we write an arc tracking tool together? So by the end of this course, I would hope, and we should be able to get to a point where you have written your own arc tracking tool. It's a very applicable tool. You'll be able to use it in your workflows, and it'll feel really cool to have created your own and be able to modify it and change it as you need to. If you are a modeler, maybe we can write tools to help you, either with vertex selection or mirroring of objects or duplication or checking of, geometry location. There's all kinds of things we can do. So just kind of formulate an idea of a tool or a goal that you would like to have. That's the driver. That's what we're getting to. And that's where you're going to be when we're finished with this course. Thanks for hopping in. As always, all feedback is welcome. Please throw it in the comments. Again, hop in the Q&A, the live stream Q&As. Also, if you all know how to do this better than I do, being of the social media generation. If you like what we're doing here, help support the channel in the ways that you know how to best. Spread the word. If you have ideas, please let me know. Hopefully this content is helpful, and if you feel as such, like I said, help support the channel and spread the word. All right, take it easy, you all. I'll catch you on the next one. All right, everybody, welcome to our first Unreal Engine addendum for our scripting for creatives. I want to be really clear on this. I think trying to learn Python in Unreal Engine is going to be slower. So you have to mentally decide that you're in for a longer road and understand that there's going to be a whole lot more to the learning curve in Unreal Engine. I think there's a couple reasons for that. Python was not added into Unreal until later in the 4 series, like 4.2. I can't even remember, but it was a while. And now it's kind of just in there. But the API, that thing that allows you to use Python with Unreal, it's pretty intense. And I often find that there's a lot of things that I try in the API that just don't work. And I've even recently tried to build tools that I tried to build in the API, and I ended up doing them in C++ instead because they worked. Now, that said, Unreal Python is super powerful, and it can potentially help you do a lot of things without having to recompile, etc. This first addendum is going to be pretty quick because mostly what it's about is it's about getting Unreal Engine set up. I'm not even going to walk you through that. Epic has a bunch of amazing videos to help you with that stuff. So there's 2 videos that I would reference. One is kind of like a quick start. It literally shows you how to make sure that the Python plugin is installed, and kind of some of the same things that we went over in Maya as far as where do you execute Python commands and how do you get your code to run. The second video I'll link is a fully intense straight diesel version walkthrough of Unreal Python, and I would consider it like just crazy on the level. But if you're gonna take it on and you want to dive head full in, this video it's pretty intense. It's 2 hours long. If you're creative, you're just starting out, you're just starting to spread your wings, I would say let's keep it simple. Just do the setup video. Know that the second video is there for reference, and I will try to make these addendums bite-sized so that you can use them. So with that in mind, I've got Unreal open here, and what we're going to do is I'm just going to show you how to run Python so you can do all of the Python scripting that we were doing in the Maya. Wherever we type those things, you'll be able to do a lot of it here if it's Python specific. A lot of the commands we were using in Maya to create cubes and spheres and stuff will not work in Unreal. You'll have to do other things. But to start with, once you have your Python plugin set up for Unreal, what you should be able to do is down here at the bottom where this console command is, where it says command, you should be able to just choose Python here. If you do that, this becomes a Python input window just like the one that's in Maya. If I open my output log, the reason I'm opening the output log is because this is where everything goes. I can clear this log just like I clear the script editor in Maya. And as I do in Maya, if I want to run a Python command print hello world, I can do that. And you'll see that just like in Maya, it prints out what I told it to print, and then it also prints out the result. Now, the Unreal output log and the Python input window doesn't really have kind of like the bigger, nicer window for inputting scripts and things like that. So in general, I would recommend with Unreal that you work in a separate file. And to do that, what we'll do is I have a separate file here, and this is just our countdown timer. This is all generic Python, so this should all work. If we take this, we've saved this out as my script. I'll show you the fast way to iterate at this point. What you can do is you can do, I think it's, here it is, tools, execute Python script. And when you do that, we're going to explore to that script. It is currently on my desktop in the scripting crash course. Here's the my script. Now, I can't see what happened for 10 seconds because just like in Maya, when you run a script that does something for 10 seconds, it takes a while to come back. Now, you can see what happened here in our script editor. This isn't even the script editor, but in our output log. What it did is it ran this command, pi, etc., and then it ran our script. And you can see what our script did, 10, 9, 8, 7, 6. The thing that I wanted to point out as far as what I find is easiest for iterating when I'm debugging and writing stuff in Unreal is you'll notice that this is called a command, and it's basically the pi and the file name. If I come back to my file and I change this to 5 seconds and save it, let's make sure it's 5 and not 55, great. Then rather than typing in Python, going File Explorer, there's two ways to quickly re-reference that. There should be a recent, I don't even see it, so I'm not gonna, oh yes it is, it's under the tools, recent Python scripts. So you could just window drag down and grab this every time, or if you switch this back to command and paste in the command that you saw it print out, what'll happen is now every time I want to run this, if I just run this and I just press enter, you'll see that it prints 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, stop. Now, interestingly enough, it does not refresh the log as it does it. You have to wait till it's completely done. Then once I've done that, the cool thing is the command line, I can just press the up arrow and the script will pop right back up and I can run it again. And then it will print out 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay, so that wraps up the addendum for Unreal Engine. Now you know where to run your code, how to clear the history, and how to save your file and kind of script and source that. A couple quick little tips. In addition, don't forget, check out the video link for kind of like a step-by-step. It's either linked in the video or down below, but a step-by-step walkthrough from Epic directly, as well as just if you're interested and you really want to do the full tilt straight diesel version of this, there is a crazy long video where they're discussing a whole lot of different things. I think there are other resources available out there. Again, I recommend, especially as a creative, you're starting at, ground zero and or potentially have struggled with this in the past, stick with Maya as a starting point. And then what we'll do maybe for fun beyond the addendums is we could try to do some of our homework exercises in Unreal Engine. So maybe we'll just do a completely separate class on how to build a house, for example, which is your homework for this class, in Unreal Engine with Python only. That might be really fun to try to figure out just from a learning standpoint. So that wraps up this addendum and this entire kind of first class in your scripting crash course. I will see you on the next one.